So in this video, I'm going to review some winter cars that you actually want to drive. Now let's be clear, you don't have to get a snow car for GTA Online. Most of the cars that you've got are probably going to be fine, but some of them do react really badly to the snow. The difference it makes is it, on the most part, affects traction, so that affects how quick you can get off the line. It has a fairly dramatic effect on cornering speed on a lot of cars, and it has an incredible effect on braking pretty much across the board. So if you want to enjoy the game using cars, you're going to want to think about which winter cars you want to use. So what I've done, I've raided my garages and picked out what I think should be the best winter cars for GTA Online in 2024 going into 2025, and I've given them all a review. Now, because I'm me, I've given myself rules. And the main rule is that I have to use these things as they were in my garage. No cheating, changing suspension settings and putting off-road tyres on. I've got to use them how I've got them set up for the other 48 weeks of the year where it isn't snowing. I've got to look at what I've got and which of those is going to be the best. Now, I'd like to think there was some rhyme or reason in this, but obviously there are so many cars in GTA Online I can't possibly test them all. So what I've done, I've employed the highly scientific approach of picking the ones that I think will be best and reviewing those. Another rule is that I won't be testing any of the 4x4s. Now, obviously, if you've got 4x4s that you like, you know, such as the Insurgent, the Walton, the Caracara, even the Night Shark, but not the Kuruma. If you've got any of those 4x4s and you like them and that's what you like to drive in the game, they're going to be fine anyway. You don't need to sit and listen to me for 10 minutes to tell you that they're going to be fine. You already know they're going to be fine, and they are. Most of the 4x4s are absolutely great in the game. The reason I've done this list is just because it's snowing and some of the cars are affected. That doesn't mean you need to spend the next few weeks in the Kuruma. Please don't spend the next few weeks in the Kuruma. So, back to the list. In 12th and last place, we have the utter disappointment that is the Calico. So this is a four-wheel drive rally-bred monster. This thing should be brilliant. Now, there are other cars in this list that are worse than this. The reason this one is so far down is because mine already had off-road tyres on, and it was still awful. It's too light, there's not enough grip, it flips over too easily. I honestly do not understand why this thing is so bad. Considering the heritage of this car in real life, this thing should be a shoo-in for this. This should be in my top 3, and it pains me that I've had to put it so low down. So the Calico for snow is definitely one to avoid. And we've got another disappointment with the Sultan. Now, some of you may be thinking, why on earth are you testing the Sultan in the snow? Well, I just thought that quite often these powerful Japanese cars are really, really good at rallying. You look at what Subaru have done and Mitsubishi, Toyota. They have, the whole country has a huge amount of rallying pedigree. I thought this would be significantly better than it is. And as you can see from the bit of the lap that I've put on here, it is absolutely goddamn awful. Another one to absolutely avoid. And in 10th place, and still a bit of disappointment, we've got the Lakaru. So this is a really powerful four-wheel drive monster. It should be brilliant. Yes, it's on road tyres, but let's just take a minute to watch it try and get up this hill. So I know this isn't going to be everyone's first choice rally car anyway, but with it being a powerful four-wheel drive car, I thought this should be a lot better than it actually was. That's why I tested it. That's why it's so far down in the list. So let's move on to number 9. And at number 9, and we're still in disappointment territory unfortunately, this is the GB200, which is based on the Ford RS200, which is another rally-bred monster, and this has typically been my favourite snow car. I've used this for years. But when I sat down to do this test, I suddenly realised how poor it is compared to many of the others. As you can see. So at number 10, it's staying. Now, I couldn't do any comparison without testing the fastest car in the game, or the fastest usable car in the game, and this is one where I know I should have expected it to be bad, but I honestly thought that the power and the four-wheel drive on this would make up for the fact that it's totally track focused. I thought what it lost on the off-road section, it would make up on the road section, but as you can see, it absolutely does not. One of the key things in the snow seems to be downforce. That will become apparent later in the video when I test some cars which have much higher downforce. So as you can see, this thing, it just really struggles. There's no grip, it's difficult to control, it is quite light, so it struggles with the off-road stuff anyway. I figured it was worth a try, but the Niobe is not going to be your friend for the next few weeks. And this is the last of my disappointments, I promise. And this is a real bitter disappointment because this is the Sultan RS Classic. Now this is based on the Subaru Impreza, which won just about every rally that's ever been run in any class anywhere ever. This should be the best car in the game for getting across my lap of the map in the snow. But it's just dreadful. Yes, this one has a road setup, but the whole configuration of the car, it should just work. And by work, maybe it shouldn't be the best, but it should be a damn sight better than it is. It's too light, there's not enough grip, there's no power to get up the hills. It's just awful. So unfortunately, for the next few weeks, the Sultan RS Classic will not be coming out of my garage. So before we get to the good cars, I do have a couple of honourable mentions, and they are for the Weenie Issy Sport and for the Vapid Flash GT. Now the reason they're not in the proper list is that I'm trying to put together a list of cool and exciting and interesting but good cars that you can use in the snow, just so you don't have to spend all of this time in something boring. And for as good as these cars were, I just feel like they were a little bit too utilitarian to be classed as like a really cool thing that you can still use through the snow. But that said, they both did perform exceptionally well. Both of them have brilliant grip off-road, they handle really well on the road, they seem to have enough power to get them up the side of anything, so either of these would be an absolutely fabulous choice. But now, let's get back to the list with some of the good ones. And finally we reach some good cars. So what you're looking at here is the Obey Omnis. So this is an older car, both in real life and in the game, but it's based on the original Audi Quattro short wheelbase. Another rally-bred monster, won pretty much anything that could be won, and as you would expect, it absolutely monsters up this track, especially when I can avoid crashing into trees and cats and basically anything. It has decent power to get up the slopes, it's nice and controllable, it's not too light so it doesn't get thrown around too much. It does a little bit, but it's not too bad, and it's just generally a really solid choice for in the snow. The only downside to this car is the top speed is really weak, so if you end up on the freeway you are going to struggle. But we can deal with that with our next entry in the list. And that is the Enus Paragon S. Again, applying my, what I would like to say is foolproof logic, but it's been quite foolish logic so far if you look at how many disappointments there have been on the list. But this is powerful, it's four-wheel drive, and it's heavy. Even though this is set up for the road, this should have everything you need to actually be able to do okay off-road, and it really does. There is enough power to push it up the inclines, much better than some of the other cars that should be running rings around this thing. I mean, this is supposed to be a luxury GT cruiser. You shouldn't be able to do this in this sort of thing, but for this it really works. And I think it's that combination of power and weight that really works for this thing. The weight just gives it that extra bit of grip that it needs, because the main thing that snow seems to affect, as I said before, is traction, and having a bit more weight will give you a little bit more traction. And this might be a surprise, but just outside the top three we've got the Trafade Thrax. Now, I wanted to make sure I got a supercar in here, so I thought, what do we need? We need something heavy, powerful and four-wheel drive, and that sounds like a job for a Bugatti. So I wheeled out the Thrax and put it through its paces on this lap, and it did not disappoint. Whilst it's not brilliant off-road, and you wouldn't expect it to be, this does what I thought the Niobe would do, and this more than makes up for it when you get to the on-road sections. I mean, just watch around these corners, look how much downforce, look how much grip this thing manages to retain in the snow. So if you're not going to be looning it around off-road like I've been doing in this video, if you're staying mainly to the roads, this is starting to feel like a really sensible choice, because you've still got the good top speed, the acceleration isn't hampered quite as much because it's four-wheel drive, and the amount of downforce it generates means you've still got a really sensible amount of grip. This is a really good choice, but unfortunately it's just outside my top three. So starting the top three, we do have a car that is in here partially because of circumstances, because the week of this video this car is free, and any good winter car that you can get for free in winter, it's just got to come high up the list. Even if arguably the Thrax performs better than this. However, that said, this is free this week from the cargo ship robbery as part of the salvage yard missions. So all you need to do is go and work your way through the salvage yard missions. They're incredibly easy. I think you have, if I remember rightly, because I did this earlier, I think you have 3 setup missions, and then you have 3 sort of mini prep missions, and then a very easy finale, and you can walk away with this. You can sell it. If you already have one, you can sell it, but if you don't, you can claim it, and if you have the document forgery office, that will only cost you 10,000, whereas if you don't have the document forgery office, then it will cost you 20,000, which is still a bargain, because you're talking about 25 minutes, half an hour's work, and £10,000 for a really good off-road car. So I've tried to make mine look like one of the Paris-Dakar Porsches from the 80s and the 90s, which actually means using the wrong livery, but I think it's close enough. What I like about this is how controllable it is when you're technically out of control. As we go through the road sections here, you can see it's really easy to control and correct, and you can actually pick your direction while you're sliding. Now, not many cars let you do that, As I say, the snow is not something to be feared in GTA Online. Some people aren't a fan of it. I actually really like it because it makes things different for a week or so. Well, it's not even a week or so anymore, it's closer to a month these days. And what I really like about this, apart from the fact that it's free, but you know me, love a bargain, it is how controllable it is. It has a decent turn of speed, it's not the fastest car ever, but if you're just sticking around the city and off-road, it's easily fast enough, and the fact that it's controllable gives you a good chance in missions. I've used this for a couple of the garment factory missions, and I was doing it to try and figure out whether the snow also affected NPC, or should I say enemy cars within the missions, and it does seem to, because when I use this for the garment factory missions, the NPCs that come after you can't get anywhere near you, and you know what those one-shot monsters are like. So this, if you're wanting to still carry on using the cars for missions, something like this would be a really, really good choice. And in second place, we have the Tropos Rally. Again, it's another older car. It's an unusual car. Some people may never have seen this car. But of all the cars that I've tested in the snow, this is the one that was the most fun. This one, whilst I have prepped it for off-road anyway, I'd already done that. It doesn't really feel like it has off-road tyres on. It feels like it has spiked snow tyres on. It actually feels like it digs in. It has the most controllable and the most usable grip of any of the cars that I've tested. Now, with it being an older one, obviously the top speed is fairly weak, but the same applies to this as I was talking about with some of the other cars, in that if you're just staying in the city, the top speed doesn't matter. You're not going to get that far past 100 anyway. So the fact that this can get you to 100 in the snow and round the corners without having to slow down too much is a massive advantage, whether you're just trying to dodge other players or whether it's NPCs. It's just a really good fun car. I think it's a really good looking car. I think it's absolutely fabulous, in fact. Based on the original Lancia Stratos, which again, another rally bred monster, which won its fair share of rallies in its time. So it should be good, and it is good. So if you have one of these, this is definitely something you should be thinking about breaking out over the snow. It's even good on the tarmac. Some of the ones that are good off-road kind of fall apart a little bit when you get them on the tarmac, but not this one. This just keeps going. It keeps the same sort of characteristics. It digs in, and it's just fun. You can actually really enjoy driving around quickly in this. You don't feel like you have to really snow down. Freudian slip. You don't feel like you have to slow down all that much in this, and that's why this is second in my list. But why is it second in my list? Because everything I've just said was about how this is the best car, about how it's the best car you can have in the snow and the best car to use for missions in the snow. And yeah, that's because my winner isn't a car. Because in first place, I've put this, the BF 400. Now, this is a really cheap and quite underused bike. It's great for stunting, if that's your thing, and if that is what you do, then you'll already have this and you'll already know of this. But this is easily the best off-road bike in the game, and one thing I was curious about is how much difference it would make if I'm able to pick my way through the traffic like you can on a bike. But that needs to be a bike that's controllable. Now, one thing I will say, this isn't traditionally fast. It does struggle with top speed, so as soon as you're out of the city, you may start to struggle with this thing. However, if you are out of the city and you're being chased, wherever you are, you can pretty much just turn and go up whatever hill is near you and escape people that way. It is that good. Now, I did time all these laps, and when I was preparing for this, I said, well, I'm not just going to say the fastest one is the best, because that's not necessarily the case. However, I had to consider the time that all of these vehicles did, and this one was just so much faster, and it was so much fun, that I had no choice but to put it in the first place. It does have a few drawbacks. Obviously, you're completely vulnerable on a bike, you're much easier to hit, but it's just such good fun. How can you not want to have fun? The snow is a pain at times in GTA Online. I think it probably does last a little bit too long these days, but while it's here, you might as well enjoy it, because it makes some cars unusable, frankly, but it makes other cars a lot more challenging and a lot more fun. And I think this is a really good time to try some bikes for a change. So why not pick yourself up a BF400 and give it a try through the snow this season. So I hope that was useful, and I'll see you all in the next one.